Okay guys, I brought you in for a little bit of a close-up. Like I said, I'm going to do my best to up and close. Is that close enough? Back up guys. You with me so far? Awesome. Next, we're going to show you how I am doing it, even though you really don't need to see this, but I'm going to show you anyway, because that's what we do here on Johnny's Motorized Bicycles. Very little pressure, we're going to drill out the head. I don't know, you want to stay level with the hole, man, okay? That's all you got to do, stay level with the freaking holes. Use downward pressure, but not a lot. Let the drill do the work, okay? That's the important part. You must let the drill do the work. In fact, I'm going to stop this one halfway through so you can see exactly the difference. Okay, bring it back up. This big light up top is money, isn't it guys? It really is so nice. Look how bright it is right here leaning down. This one here is the one that I didn't go all the way through. You can see how much metal I'm taking off. Here is one of the studs for the one I did go completely through. Boom. Nice snug fit, and that's what we're doing. We're upsizing everything, all the threads on the case work so far. So let me tell you guys, we are money. Very excited about what we're doing here at Johnny's Motorized Bicycles. We're moving right along. Sorry, English language is my first language, but also the hardest for me to speak. So once all this is done, then we can reassemble. Well, first we gotta clean, then reassemble, basically just the case, the crank. I also have to build something that I can put this on so that I can actually balance the crank. I think I want to balance the crank on this motor, and I know it sounds stupid because it's only a 50cc and blah blah blah, and I was going to put it together last time without it, but the reason I want to balance it is my next two builds, you guys know, the two steel chainsaw top ends, and I'm definitely going to balance the cranks in them to the best of my abilities. So I think a good practice would be on this. I did try separating this last night and it did not work out, unfortunately. Honestly, I'm not giving up yet. I will check all squish and everything and all that stuff. The main reason I can't do it with my little jig I worked out, which really isn't a jig, it's really just a leaf spring off of like a dump truck that I found in the road that I cut in half. And it's basically just a C-channel that when you put it in here, it pushes against the one and you put a socket on the pin and whatnot, but my vise is not nearly strong enough to do that kind of clamping. It started bending the bars, which is not surprising. I did pay a lot for this at about $7 at Hobo Freight, and it's just not up to the task. Now I can go to a machine shop or one of the local guys around here, maybe use their vise. I was thinking about doing that. That might cost money, and I probably won't do it if it does. Or take it to a machine shop and have them, I can't even say it with a straight face, you know I'm not going to spend any money. Okay guys, we are drilling out the cylinder. Every now and then I come across a hard spot, but once you feel that, you just back off and take your time. It's usually a flaw in the actual casting when you look down the bore of the stud hole. This one's the one I drilled. Not drilled. Now we still have to deck and all that. There's still a lot of things we have to do, but the number one thing is we need to be able to see how the motor fits. And we can't do any of that without these bolts. So we're getting there. I still have to drill out the, oh you guys are, sorry you guys are looking down here. I still have to drill out the head gasket and the base gasket if we decide to use a base gasket, which we may not, right? But we'll see. This kind of hurts my neck, so next time if you could just, all right. Beautiful, beautiful. Let's check her out. And it didn't go down because there's a bar down there stopping it, but it does go through. All the way through. All the way through. That went exceptionally well. And I'm very glad you could join me for that. So, okay, we are good. Everything is rocking and rolling, basically. All right, guys. Now, I don't have this clamped together, but you'll still be able to see. See the lateral movement. And yes, the case is not clamped, so there is a slight bit more than normal, but this is how the motor was stock. So it didn't have a shim, a spacer, so I made one. And you see how thick it is. I mean, it's thin. Look, it's thin, you know, super thin. But put that on there, put it back together. No more play. And it's still butter smooth, you know, it effortlessly moves. but no more lateral play. You look out for this kind of stuff, and you learn as you do more and more. I think it was about 2 or 3 motors ago, I had seen one came with a stock shim in it. And basically, when I saw the stock shim, you know, it tricked in my head to be like, hey, I need to start looking for this kind of stuff. And, you know, you're not going to learn it all instantly. You're just not going to know all this stuff right away. Immediately, it just doesn't happen like that. But little by little, you start picking up more and more and more stuff, and eventually you become decent at it, or a professional like me. You know, hold on a second. It was wonderful. But yeah, you just got to pay attention to little stupid things. But I just wanted to point that shim out to you. I just made it out of a regular old washer. It's just a washer that fit over the crank. It's close, you know. I found one that fit really well, and then I just I sanded it down on the table and just kept going both sides till I got it the thickness I needed. It's amazing because when you're sitting there playing with it and feeling how much it moves, it does not feel like it's that little. So, okay, that's all I had to say about that. I just wanted to point it out and show you like things to look for and keep your eyes open when you're building these things. But also, before I forget, I put it on this side. Now, I measured where the center was. So the crank, it's about dead even. If the shim was on the other side, this would be like around there, and it would be off-centered. And yes, the play in the connecting rod on top on the piston and on the bottom in the crank, it would probably make up for the difference in alignment. But you want to get everything as close to perfect as possible, so it's not just about adding a shim to the left side of the motor, it's about adding the shim to the correct side of the motor, and it's easy to figure out. I'm just saying, keep your eye open for that kind of stuff, alright? I don't think I'm going to deck it yet. I want to see how tight all the tolerances are as is, and I am thinking about turning the edge down and turning this into a pop-up piston and raising the compression on this motor. I really want to try something a little different. I don't know, we're going to get into it pretty deep on this one, just because I feel like I've learned quite a bit in the past couple builds, and I really want to keep taking my skills to the next level. And I think for me, one of the best places to do that is not even just with the 50cc because it's nostalgia for me, but also if you can make power with something so tiny, then there's no reason I can't make more power with the bigger ones, i.e. chainsaws, the Franks. That's right. I want to show you something. See down in there, the transfer right there? It's open. See on this side? It is not open. There. Now it's opening. And look how much more that's open. There is a good 2 degrees in between the transfers opening. And I don't mean secondaries and primaries. I mean straight up the left and the right. It's something we might have to try to fix the best we can, which isn't really a big, huge deal, but I just figured I'd bring you in and show you because I want to try to do the best job documenting this one as possible with how I come up with things and do things and all that. So what I'm coming up with, stock numbers. We have a squish of 8 millimeters. It's insane. Exhaust opens 111, closes 150, duration 139. Transfers opens 121, closes 241, duration 120. Intake 58 degrees before top dead center opens, closes 60 degrees after top dead center, 118 degrees of duration. Now, if you notice, like an intake for instance, 58, it should close at 58 after top dead. The reason my degree wheel doesn't read correct, even though it is set up correctly, is because when I drilled the hole in the center, I drilled it slightly off center, accidentally, obviously. That's why my numbers don't always match up. It's really 1 degree on the open, 1 degree on the close, it's off. That's why I just give you the numbers that it says, the open and close. I do work that out when I do it, so when I give you numbers, the durations are right, it's the open and close is like a degree off one way or the other. It's because of how I drilled the center out, I just didn't get dead center. So blowdown was 10 degrees of blowdown, that's it. Already as it sits in stock form, say I do nothing, I put this together stock, I need to take off, as it is, just to get the squish correct, I need to take off this bottom fin. I'm already cutting the top of this cylinder off. If I don't put a spacer in it, if I just put it together, let the numbers ride how they are, I need to cut 1/4 inch out of the top of the cylinder. I'm already cutting the top of the cylinder as it is, so why not make it what I want? Just to make it easy for you guys so you guys can see it. So we need to cut off right there. That's about level with the head. So we need to cut below this fin so they both have the same amount of pump. So this one has the same amount of pump as this one. I got a lot to think about on this. This swap, I mean, it's an easy swap. If I want to do it easy, simple, leave everything stock, base gaskets and all that, use the head gasket, I just basically chop the top of the cylinder off, leave the numbers as they sit, which the numbers aren't horrible for, 50cc. You don't want to have the same exact numbers as you do in in a 80 or 100. Everything's different. Every motor works different. I noticed already that some of the numbers that work well in my 80cc don't work good in my 100. I noticed numbers that would never work good in my 80 work great in my 100. Like numbers that are way off the charts for an 80 are blowing my 100 up. Hot. Wouldn't even make an 80 run. So there's obviously variables between the difference in sizes. So I'm not looking for the same 24 degrees, 25 degrees of blowdown. In my Sutec motor here, the 4mm Sutec spacer, I have 31 degrees of blowdown in that. That thing pulls off the line. Pulls hard off the line. Hard. Thing pulls hard off the line. Anthony's dial read, 20 degrees of blowdown. Pulls hard off the line. Blows the spacer motor out of the water. My motor, my iron sleeve, 22 degrees of blowdown. Not much on the bottom end. But now we're different. We're not a YD100 size, but we're not a Sutec size. But like 22 degrees of blowdown on YD100 pulls like a tank. You know what I'm saying? So everything's a little bit different. So that's why I'm thinking right now with 10 degrees of blowdown, I think safe bet would be 15 to 20 degrees of blowdown. There's a lot to think about here. There's a whole lot to think about. My next step, I think, is I'm going to deck the case and get it 100% flat. Once I know this is 100% flat, I am going to probably remeasure everything to see how much I lost. Check where the numbers sit. I want to see how much the ports are closed on the exhaust, because now the cylinder is going to go down, so even more of the piston is going to be sitting inside the exhaust port. No matter what, I have to jack it up, because there's going to be too much closed. Also, that means the transfers aren't going to open up enough. No matter what, I got to deck that, and I got to cut this. That's 100% what I'm doing. My mind is made up. So now you know what I'm doing, guys. Let me get started. I am going to cut the top of that cylinder off. I'm going to cut the bottom of that cylinder off. I'm going to make myself a spacer, and I'm going to fix the issue I have from going from a single-piece jug to a two-piece jug on my 50cc motor. How I surface my cases. I put one in over here, two in here, clamp it down tight, go to town. And I started taping it down because it makes a huge difference. I don't want to have to push. If you push, you could go like here, like I'm notorious for, I do it like this a lot of times, and when you pull back, you lean out on this edge, and it ends up making this corner lower than all the rest of them. As it sits, when you put it up on the edge, it's only touching really in these spots, okay? So it teeter-totters on the flat surface, but you can see I did it. You saw how many passes I just did. It's only touching there, here, there, a little there, almost not there, but all this is not even getting touched yet. There is definitely a little bit I need to take down. Keep it flat as you can. It's not important about pushing down. We're not trying to bring the surface down. I mean, we are, but we're not trying to actually take meat away. We're just trying to level it. So you want to use only a little bit of pressure, and you want to let the sandpaper do the work. Look how long I've been doing it. It's only not touching here and not touching there now. We're level all the way across pretty much. From here to here, there's a big one. And the reason I'm doing this with a gasket with that little bit, I mean, yeah, it's a lot, maybe a couple thousandths, but I'm gonna be doing no base gasket, so I need it to be level. The farther you get to the bottom, to making it completely level, the longer it's gonna take to get that last little bit. There is only a itty bitty tiny bit right there. That's when you stop, when you have just the small, if you're not trying to take the surface down a lot. So there's just a tiny itty bitty bit right there. That's it. Next step, you go to the next grit. Okay, we put a 150 grit. What it looks like, let's see. last bit here. There, I just touched. I just started touching. It's so little, the variations, but look at this. So I purposely went opposite way of the grain. In this corner, you could still see perpendicular to what I just did. Right on this end, you could still see perpendicular to what I just did. But we are just about there. All right, we got cross hatching going both ways, but there is, I went this way and that way, and now there is equal cross hatching across the whole surface. So that is it for that surface. We're level, we stop. We're not trying to deck it. I can show you. This is 220 grit. That's the next one we're at. 220 grit. This will be the farthest I go on this. That's going to be more than enough to make it smooth. The first 4 or 5 passes, you can actually start to feel it grip the sandpaper different because it's just a few passes, and you can see in the actual light. Once you get almost done and you're on the 220 grit, it should feel smooth gliding across the sandpaper. Yeah, look how nice and shiny that is now. Oh yeah, we got equal light all the way around reflecting. That's how you tell, really, honestly, guys. That's how I tell. So you just try to catch the light and like move your head to where it is and see. Alright guys, I'm gonna try to show you exactly how I do this. There you go. Okay, I want to show you how it looks. The holes all match up perfect. Everything's good. Oh, we're getting close. Okay, I am installing the magnet and the nut. Magnet is just to take up the space. Okay, I got you in here. Last time we had an 8mm squish, if you remember. I needed 3 bends in my solder, so now there is 4 bends. At the present, the amount of solder needed is almost as big as the spark plug hole. The only reason I'm checking this is because this is what's going to get me to where I need to actually cut it. It's so weird. That was about the best we're going to get with how thick it is. It's hard to get a proper squish measurement for a ballpark. 11, 12, 11 and a half, 12, somewhere in there. All bad, but be expected. Yeah, 3mm spacer makes sense. So it's a thin spacer. This is what we got right now for the piston and the exhaust port. Right around there is dwell. So the piston is no longer in the way of the exhaust port at all. Now I still got to port the motor, but I'm not porting anything until I know what the numbers are. And once I know what the numbers are, then I can start working the ports, because the main reason I'm doing the spacer instead of hogging out the transfers on this, it's just so tiny and I don't have the control. I have better results with just making a small spacer and then modifying the rest of the engine to compensate for what I did. So we still have to port match the case, port match the cylinder, all that stuff, port the cylinder period, but right now I'm going to attach the degree wheel and we're going to see what our timing marks and stuff are at. Hey, the other day when I was talking about my degree wheel being off, if you look at dead center you can see how it's off. It now has an X here. As long as I set it on the X, like put the X on the axle, on the crank, it should be more accurate. We will check that right now on the intake, because that's the easiest one for me to realize if it's the same or not, because before and after, top dead. So I took the spacer out. There's a couple options that I wanted to go over with this motor. With the spacer, we had 162, this is not ported yet, 162 degrees of duration. Without the spacer or a base gasket, with a pop-up piston, which will be to raise the compression, we have 154 degrees of duration. So transfers, with the spacer, we had 141 degrees of duration, extremely high. Now I can make the spacer thinner, of course, so I'm probably not going to do the spacer. Even if I was to take it and lessen it and shrink it, I still don't think I'm going to go spacer, because I just don't like it. But what I do like is the numbers for this pop-up. So for the transfers, we have 120 degrees of duration. That's good transfer duration. So with the pop-up, we have 154 degrees for exhaust, and we have 120 degrees for transfers. Right there, I'm already really happy. That's 17 degrees of blowdown. Now, I do want to take and raise the blowdown. I still have to port the motor. So no matter what, With a pop-up piston, we're much better as far as durations are going. Before port, after port, we're gonna be really pretty, I think. We're sit pretty. The intake with the spacer was 99 degrees of duration. With the spacer, you lose intake duration. Stock, we were at 118 degrees of duration. With the pop-up, no base gasket, we're at 134 degrees of duration. I feel like something's getting messed up there because we shouldn't gain 16 degrees of duration from just losing the gasket. I would think it would be around 10 degrees, but I could be wrong. As it sits without any port work, we have 17 degrees of blowdown. For this exact cylinder, they don't sell a pop-up piston. Okay, so this is something I'm gonna have to make. Mind you, I did not go, this is the old piston, I didn't do it to the new piston yet. I didn't go all the way down. I went a little thinner than I would actually like to go, so my numbers are a little off still, but like I said, I still have to port. This is just a ballpark, so I know which way I want to go. Do I want to go spacer? Do I want to go full stock and just shrink the squish? Do I want to do the pop-up and raise the compression and cut the top off? And I am leaning towards the pop-up. Now granted, it is not easy to do this. I mean, to do a crappy job like this, it was fairly easy. To do a good job is going to be extremely hard to do. But I think we could do it. How exactly, I'm not sure. But we'll worry about that later. So I think the next steps for me, because I like the way it's going, is I gotta port the cylinder, which means I need to get both transfers at the same height, because then I'll be able to measure everything a little bit better. And I think I need to pop up the stock piston. I think I'm going to do the piston first, so I know how much I want to take and open up the transfers a little bit, and how much I want to open everything else up. But with exhaust duration of 154 from the stock 139, we gain 15 degrees of duration with the pop-up, because I'm really trying to get grunt out of a 50cc, which is going to be hard to do. But that's why I want to go with the pop-up, because I want to keep the transfer duration low and I want to get the compression up high. Figure I'll bring you in and show you exactly how I'm doing it. How's it look?